Hello everyone, I am Khyati Tarun Kumar Desai. So here we are going to learn a topic called as comparing clustering algorithms. So first of all, we will start with the definition of a clustering. So the task of grouping data points based on their similarity with each other is called clustering. Clustering is like finding natural groups in a crowd without anyone telling you who belongs where, and it's especially useful when working with the large amounts of unlabeled data in deep learning. So basically, clustering means grouping of data points on their similarities with each other, and this clustering works best with the large amounts of unlabeled data. So there are three types of clusterings. So first is k-means clustering, second is hierarchical clustering, and third is DB scan. So we will learn all these types in detail in further. So here we can just go through an example in which all the three types are explained in short. So let's see. So it is, imagine a shopping mall wants to group customers using their age and spending score. So K-means would split them into fixed groups like young high spenders, middle-aged medium spenders, and old low spenders. So basically, K-means would like to divide the or make the groups based on the particular similarity. So here the similarity is like young high spenders, middle-aged medium spenders, and older low spenders. After that, we have hierarchical clustering, would build a tree of similarities showing broader groups or smaller subgroups depending on how deep you look. So basically, hierarchical clustering would build a tree based on their similarities. Like first of all, we can say like node. After that, root node, their child, such that. After that, we have DB scan. DB scan would find dense regions such as students with low income or retired high spenders, while treating rare cases as noise. So DB scan will make a group, and the people or person students which are not in their group will be treated as rare cases as noise. So we will learn all these three types in detail. So first we will see what is K-means clustering. So K-means clustering is a partition based algorithm that divides data into a predefined number of clusters K. It works by randomly selecting K centroids and then assigning each data point to nearest centroid. The centroids are updated iteratively by calculating the mean of the points within each cluster, and this process continues until the clusters stabilize. So basically, K-means clustering would partition based on the algorithms that divides data into predefined number of clusters, which we have represented as K, and it works by randomly selecting the k centroids and then assigning each data point to the nearest centroids. After that, these centroids are updated iteratively by calculating the mean of each data points, and this process keeps on continuing until the cluster gets stabilized. After that, K-means is widely used because it is simple, efficient, and works well when clusters are roughly spherical and evenly sized. However, it requires the number of clusters to be known in advance and then struggle with irregularly shaped or noisy data. So, K-means clustering is widely used when data is simple and efficient, and it works best when the data is in a spherical form, or we can say evenly sized. And means it is in this K-means clustering, it requires the number of clusters to be known in advance. So here we can see one example, that is grouping school students into three groups based on their exam marks, that is high, medium, and low scores. So basic idea is that in a school, if a teacher wants to group the students between the marks, that is students which have high marks, students which have medium marks, and students which have low marks. So the teacher will group the students based on their category of marks. So here we can see the diagram, that is, here we have raw data, that is all the data points are randomly placed. After applying the k-means clustering, here we can see the clusters are formed based on the similarity. That is, here it is a red cluster, here it is a blue cluster, and here it is a green cluster. So basic idea is to form a clusters based on their similarities. So the next point we will learn, that is second type, is hierarchical clustering. Hierarchical clustering is a method that builds a hierarchy of clusters either by merging smaller clusters step by step, that is, it is called as algorithm approach, or by splitting larger clusters into smaller ones, that is divisive approach. So basically hierarchical clustering builds a tree in which there are two approach. First is by merging a smaller one, that is smaller cluster step by step, or we can say it divides the big cluster into smaller one. So here we can see diagram in which it is represented. So here algorithm is that making the smaller clusters into big, and here divisive is that making the bigger cluster into smaller one. So after that, the results are usually represented in a tree like structure called dendrogram, which allows us to see relationship between clusters at different levels. This makes it useful for exploring data when we don't know the number of clusters beforehand. However, hierarchical clustering is computationally expensive for large datasets and can be sensitive to noise and the choice of linkage method, single, complete, or average. So the hierarchical clustering are represented in a tree-like structure, which we call it as dendrogram, and it shows us the relationship between the clusters at different levels, and it works best with the large data sets. So here where we can see one example, that is making a family tree to show how relatives are connected generation by generation. So here we can see that if we draw one family tree, then that in that we can see that first of all we can see first of all it comes grandfather, then father, then our generation, like this way one by one generation comes. So that is one example of hierarchical clustering. After that we will see db scan, that is density based spatial clustering of applications with noise. So db scan is a density based algorithm that groups together points that are closely packed while marking points in sparse regions as noise. It requires two parameters, epsilon, that is the neighborhood radius, and minimum points, that is the number of points needed to form a dense cluster. So basically dbscan is a density based algorithm in which it groups data points which are closely packed, and it removes the data points and makes it apart, and we tell them as noise. And here there are two parameters in total, that is first is epsilon and second is minimum points. After that, unlike k-means, dbscan does not require the number of clusters to be specified and can discover clusters of arbitrary shapes such as elongated or irregular shapes. It is also effective at handling outliers, making it very useful for real world data. So one of the best thing of dbscan is that it is also effective at handling outliers. It can handle different types of outliers. After that, however, dbscan can struggle when clusters vary a lot in density or in very high dimensional datasets. So dbscan has difficulty in handling datasets with very high dimension. Here we can see the diagram of dbscan. So here we can see these are the data points which are close to each other. So here they have formed groups, that is red, green, and blue, and these middle data sets we can tell them as noise. So here where we can see one example, that is finding friends at a park by spotting where groups are sitting close together while ignoring someone sitting far away. So in a garden, a group of friends is sitting and some other peoples are sitting alone. So we can compare that with this DB scan. So next we are going to see the working mechanism of each clustering. So first is K-means clustering. So we will see in this, first of all we have to choose the number of clusters K you want. After that, place K points randomly as centroids, that is center of clusters. After that, assign each data point to the nearest centroid. Update each centroid to be the average mean of the points in its clusters. And at last, repeat step 3 and 4 until the centroids stop moving. So here, first of all, we have to choose the number of clusters K we want. After that, we have to place K points randomly as centroids. After that, we will assign each data point to the nearest centroid which is there. After that, we will update each centroid to be the average, that is the mean of the points in its clusters. And we will repeat the steps, that is we will repeat third and fourth step until the centroids stop moving. So here we have that example only, that is, let's see, a teacher divides student into three groups based on marks. She keeps rechecking and adjusting the group until everyone fits best into high, medium or low scores. So second we will see hierarchical clustering. So in this, it keep merging clusters to form a tree. So here, start with each data point as its own cluster. After that, find the two clusters that are closer together and merge them. After that, repeat merging step by step until only one big cluster remains. That represent the process in a dendrogram, that is tree diagram, where you can cut at any level to choose the number of clusters. So this was the step of hierarchical clustering. If we see the example, then it is in a family reunion. You start by pairing the closest relatives, that is siblings, then merge into bigger groups, it is cousins, families, building a family tree step by step. So basically we will, first of all, we will choose one tree or choose one thing, that is here we have chosen the sibling. After that we will join that sibling to cousins. After that we will join them to their parents, like that we will do family. After that finally one family tree will become, that is known as dendrogram. So last we will see working mechanism of DB scan. So here it find the dense neighborhoods and ignore outliers. So here it is, pick a random point and check how many neighbors it has within distance epsilon. That if it has at least minimum points neighbors, it becomes a core point and forms a cluster. That expand the cluster by including all points close to the core points. Points too far from any cluster are labeled as noise. Repeat until all the points are checked. So this is the step by step flow of DV scan. The example is that at a park, groups of friends sitting close together from a cluster, while a person sitting far away is considered as noise. So next we will see the challenges or limitations. So K-means clustering contains some challenges and limitations that are, you must choose the number of clusters K in advance. So we have to choose the number of clusters in advance only. After that, it works best only for spherical or equally sized clusters. It After that, we are sensitive to outliers, means even one extreme value can shift the centroid. After that, results can change depending on the initial placement of the centroids. So your result might get changed or vary based on the initial placing of centroids. After that, second, we have hierarchical clustering. So its limitations are computationally expensive for large data sets, that is, slow down as data grows. After that, once two clusters are merged, they cannot be undone, that is, no backtracking. So your backtracking is not possible in hierarchical clustering. After that, sensitive to noise and outliers, which can distort the tree. It is dendrogram. After that, different linkage methods, that is single, complete, and average, may give very different results. So the result may vary based on the different kind of linkage methods. So last is DB scan. So its limitations are performance depends heavily on the choice of FP salon and minimum points. Second is struggles when the clusters have different densities. After that we have doesn't work well in high dimensional data. And last is can sometimes label too many points as noise if parameters are not set well. So last, if we see the summary, what we learned. So first of all, we saw the clustering. So in clustering is a powerful way to find hidden patterns in unlabeled data, and each algorithm has its own strengths and weakness. After that, we saw three types of clusterings, that is K-means, hierarchical, and DB scan. So K-means is a simple, fast, and works well for large data sets with well-separated spherical clusters, but it requires knowing the number of clusters in advance and is sensitive to outliers. After that, hierarchical creates a tree-like structure called as dendrogram that shows relationships between the data points at different levels, making it useful for exploratory analysis, but it becomes slow for datasets and can be distorted by noise. After that, we have DB scan is effective for finding the clusters of arbitrary shapes and handling outliers without needing the number of clusters beforehand, and it struggles with datasets that have clusters of varying densities and depends heavily on the parameter settings. So in short, the choice of algorithm depends on the nature of the data. So K means for speed and simplicity, hierarchical for structure and visualization, and DB scan for noisy and irregular data points. So thank you. This was all about comparing clustering algorithms.